hi everybody. I hope you can hear me. And thank you everyone. I'm pleasured to share the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore approach to building a robust maritime cybersecurity programs. I will start off my presentation in three parts. The first part I will briefly share about Maritime Singapore and MPA itself. And the second part I will talk about our approach and strategy to building a robust maritime cybersecurity program. And lastly, I will emphasize the importance of awareness and educations to which we all know that human or people is one of the weakest link, and no matter how high tech the tools and processes you have, you still need to continuously strengthen the people side of the awareness and educations. So this will be probably the agenda of my presentations. A quick overview of Maritime Singapore and Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore. Okay, as a whole, Maritime Singapore, today we are one of the, I think, world busiest transshipment hub for container vessels. And in 2019, we actually processed 37.2 million TEUs of container. And we are also one of the top bunkering ports, where we supply about 47.5 million tons of bunker in 2019. And in terms of the number of ships in the port of Singapore, at any one time, there's about 1,000 ships in the port of Singapore. The port of Singapore is also one of the top quality flags for the Singapore Registry of Ships. It's one of the top quality flags that is recognized internationally. Okay, briefly, MPA, which stands for Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore, is a statutory board under the Ministry of Transport. And under the Ministry of Transport, there are also other statutory boards that look at the aviation side, the air side, and the land side. So the land side is the Land Transport Authority, and the aviation side is the Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore. So now I go into the objective of MPA. Broadly, there are three key missions of MPA. The first one is to maintain our global hub port status, in which we perform the role of a regulator and port planner for the Port of Singapore. Take for example, in terms of developing the next generation TOAS ports, where we will build a future port that can process up to, or can handle up to 65 million TEUs, and that planning function is performed by MPA. So the other role is we will try to promote Singapore as an international maritime center, where we will encourage the setups of key shipping activities, such as shipbroking, ship owning, and ship operating companies, and also a diverse range of maritime ancillary services consisting of logistics, technical, and commercial activities. So the role of an international maritime center is both a promoter and a developer role for the industry. The third one is about safeguarding Singapore maritime interests, in which at the international stage, we continue to participate in the International Maritime Organization and also other regional and international organizations. And our objective is to ensure the continuous safe and open access to and from the Port of Singapore, and to create enabling factors for the competitiveness of our ports. Okay, so this is a very quick introductions of MPA and Maritime Singapore. I'll next move on to the second part of the agenda, which I will share about the approach for our cybersecurity programs. First, probably just a quick overview that what we envisage, MPA envisage the type of technology system in the maritime sector. I mean, the first one, top on the left, is corporate IT systems. That means all those IT systems that running in your company. the enterprise IT systems, which typically all companies will have some form of IT systems. And the second type of systems are shore-based port operations system, port operation and marine services systems. So these are typically created for operations purposes, like for example, for port operation or terminal operation systems. And sometimes in the shore-based port operation system, there are some form of OT system, ops technology system, operation technology systems. The third type is regarding is also a shore-based system, and this is the terminal planning and those yacht crane and key crane operation systems. So these are more concerning about the planning of the resources of a terminal, as well as controlling the deployment of resources like yacht cranes and key cranes, the systems. And the fourth one is all those shore-based sensors, where they receive the signal, the communications from the shipboard systems. So these are the surveillance sensor system like radar and AIS. So the fifth one is the shipboard systems, which is the systems inside or on a vessel itself, where when they are approaching the port, they will need to communicate with the authorities on their arrival of their vessel, for example. So these are the five type of technology system, and we see that these five technology systems, all they are required to be cyber secure. So I think this slide is no strangers to most of you guys, the cyber threats out there. And I think this is also internationally is being is well known that these are the top cyber threats. It comes from phishing emails, ransomware, and data breach, and also web application attacks. And also DDoS and malware, all this. So these attacks are increasingly more sophisticated and complex. And these are the attacks that a robust cybersecurity program should address and manage in their programs. And I mean, before COVID-19, there's already increase in emphasis on digitalization. But the COVID-19 also demonstrated, or rather accelerated digitalization, because we all know that digitalization actually reduces the need for probably more physical or enable more contactless operations. So there is an increased digitalization. However, we will realize that the risk for cybersecurity will also rise in tandem with the digitalization activities. And some of the so-called vulnerabilities could be related to, for example, unpatched systems. Maybe the network itself is not segmented. There's no controls within the networks, for examples. Okay. So for MPA, we identified 4 key strategies that we need to have a robust cybersecurity programs. And the first one on top is about having a robust governance and risk and compliance management programs. I'll step through each of them in my subsequent slides. And the second one is very important about user training and integrations. And the third one is the ability to monitor and detect and respond swiftly. And the fourth one is about having a plans that is constantly being practiced, where everybody knows their roles and how to carry out their particular functions in managing an incident. Right. So these 4 are all equally important, and we need to take a multi-pronged approach to ensure cyber resilience. So first one, I'll talk about governance and risk management. Briefly, I'll just share that in Singapore, we have established a national cybersecurity strategy. And that is managed by a government agency known as Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore. So they have established 4 key pillars on building cyber resilience. And the 4 of them are, first, about building a resilience infrastructure. And the resilient infrastructure referring to all the critical information infrastructures that we need to protect them because these are systems that are providing essential services. The second part is about creating a safer cyberspace for the nation. And the third portion is about developing a vibrant cybersecurity ecosystems that works with the industry to co-create solutions and demand for the industry in providing solutions for solutions for Singapore. And the fourth one is about strengthening the international partnerships with the corresponding counterpart from other countries' cybersecurity agencies. So, for example, in 2018, a cybersecurity act was passed through, and it actually highlighted 11 critical sectors that these are the critical information infrastructure that are providing essential services to Singapore, and this information infrastructure needs to be secure. So actually, as highlighted in the slides, one of them is maritime. So maritime is one of the CII, critical information infrastructure sector that are covered in the Cybersecurity Act. And under the Act, which you can access it through the internet, there is mandatory requirements for regular risk assessment. And there's also mandatory requirement for regular audits that the systems, the critical systems comply to the policy requirements for protections, right, for resiliency and security. Okay, the next slide shows that at the national, while you need to have a central body and drive the national development for cybersecurity capability, within the organizations, there is also need to have top management support. And today, cybersecurity is no longer just a pure technical risk to be managed. In fact, cybersecurity has gone into the board committees. And even for MPA, we have established a cyber board committee that's chaired by our chairman. So the governance structures for organization, it has to be all the way from the top, where they all understand the importance of cybersecurity, and they all know that it's no longer a technical IT risk, but a strategic business risk, right? So all the C-level officers like CEO and CTO, CFO, and CISO, they all will have to emphasize or give priority to cybersecurity developments. So underlying that, there will be a set of, I'll call it strategies that organization can adopt. First is about understanding the current and emerging trends and what are the advanced threats out there, and knowing what I need to, the so-called the compliance requirements, and working out. And definitely in cybersecurity, you need to have, it cannot be just a work that is done internally. You need to work with partners or industries to bring in some of the technology solutions to protect the systems. Okay, and at the framework level, actually, MPA, we actually reference the NIST framework, which is about these 5 stages of identify, protect, detect, response, and recover. I'll share more about this framework. So at the end of the day, the cybersecurity programs that this chart is showing, it aims to reduce the cyber risk and the impact of cyber incident, rather than eliminating it, because it's almost, I'll put it this way, that there's no 100% security. So the aim is to reduce the risk and the impact of a cyber incident. That is the objective of a robust cybersecurity programs. So these slides go a little bit more technical to show a reference framework that can be used to so-called the functions that an organization should have, and they should need to perform these functions well to cover this 5 process area of a NIST framework. From identify, having the capability to even know where are my technology assets, so visibility of assets, right? And understand your business environment and also the governance in place, and regularly perform the risk assessment, applying the latest evolving threat landscape to see whether is there a gap in your controls, right? And if we move on to protect, there will be a set of technology solutions that we should apply in our organizations. For example, identifying the user itself and managing the access control, and protective technology and data security. These are just some examples. And having identified and protect, then you need to have a regime to conduct 24/7 monitorings to monitor and detect for anomalies and events that warrant further investigations. And then you move on to the 4th stage is if that investigation is a positive trigger, then there is a need to response. What is your response steps? What is your communication plan? And how do you recover from the incidents? Right. So this whole 5 perspective actually provide a good framework for organizations to adopt a process approach to covering the end-to-end requirement of identifying my assets to be protected, and all the way to handling the recovery should an incident happens. So I have skipped the user education first because I have another slide for user education. So I want to go into the part of proactive monitoring and detections. And important in this proactive monitoring or detection is about gaining situation awareness. There are, inside this slide, there are various tools available. So one of them, I'll call it Security Operations Center, a SOC. And I think a SOC is necessary especially for organizations to understand what is going on within the organization, all their assets. So these SOCs will process, for example, process all the logs collected from all the public-facing systems, for example, including internal systems, and they will analyze for anomalies, analyze for events that meet a set of criteria, and with that, the SOC analyst will investigate further, is that a positive or a false alarm? And this SOC capability is important because it can give you a situation awareness, particularly, for example, in the case of a port authority, we are also regulating the industry and looking at the CII. So we do need to know not just the situation awareness of our organization itself, but including the sector. So a SOC can perform that role. And inside the SOC, typically you will also subscribe to threat intelligence, a lot of feeds from the threat intelligence, and you will also implement a lot of monitoring and detection tools. Take for example, I think early this year, there's this supply chain attack on solar wind. So there's a lot of reports saying that for supply chain attack is very sophisticated, and because this is a trusted product, and it probably required and the organization itself to know all your assets, very well. And when there's anomalies in your assets, that will trigger alarms. And for example, if there's abnormal or there's a abnormal request to escalate privilege, that is a process that warrant attentions. So there are some of these controls, and including both technology and process controls that can put in place to detect for anomalies on a 24/7 basis. And the other one that is very important under this um, um, proactive monitoring and detection strategy is to have info sharing. Why I say so is because when I say info sharing, is info sharing with your partners, where my next slide will show that. Okay, maybe I move on to my next slide to show that I think there's a benefit of an info sharing network where we will encourage like-minded partners to collaborate and share information relating to cyber threats. And this information is the advanced information. I think when we say like-minded partner, it could be, for example, a group of maybe port authorities come together to form a network, and they share information about, share actionable information that each other can be informed of some potential threats, and they take early preparations to stand up their security posture, to up their alert level. So, so what I'm trying to explain here is, besides doing it within your organization, it's good to have that network with your counterparts, right, or with the industry, so that together they will be stronger in mitigating any cyber threats. The last, after the proactive monitoring, there's a need to have a very robust incident response management plan. And the incident response management plans should cover the procedure for all the cyber threats. So you have a playbooks for all your cyber threats, and you know when this trigger, what is your procedure. And it's not something that is ad hoc, that when it happens, then you start trying to figure out what is the steps to do. So you will have all this procedure put inside a playbook, and the procedure will be practiced on an exercise, regular exercise basis. And inside this procedure, it's not just procedures, but there should be communication plans where your company corporate communication may come in, and what is their public message, right? When this kind of incident happen, and as well as there's very clear reporting structure, the command that will take place when during an incident, right? Reporting structure and timeline. And after having this plan, there's a need to practice and improve the plan, because the plans need to put into practice, and then you realize that certain part of the plans need to be fine-tuned, right? And if you have a sector role, you probably have to involve your partners as well, your partners in the industry, as part of this sectoral tabletop exercise. TTX stands for tabletop exercise. And besides the tabletop exercise, a regular risk assessment should be practiced as part of your cyber security program. And this risk assessment will always benchmark, or rather they will research, or they will use the latest evolving threats and to identify scenarios, and using the scenarios to go through the current controls in the organization and see whether is the control still adequate. So it's a regular assessment exercise to ensure that the controls are updated. And the fourth part is about having a BCP plan. So should you need to bring down some services, you have very clear BCP plans to allow critical businesses or operations to continue. Right. So these are the full suite of a robust incident management plan. Okay, so the third part of my agenda, I'll go into awareness and educations. I which I just now I highlighted that people is always one of the weakest link, and there is a need for continuous educations, even though it could be repeated, right? And I think some of the programs that you can consider is having simulated phishing exercise to raise the awareness of the staff in detecting phishing emails. On top of that, there can be self-directed learning, where there can be applications for staff to learn about cybersecurity and to pass a set of quizzes on a mandatory basis, like, for example, annually, and for new staff to join the organizations. So, and on top of that, at the industry side, there should be more focal discussions with your counterparts to raise the level of cyber awareness, even for the industry, right? And then this can be done through seminar or even focus group discussion with interested companies to discuss about this. And actually for seminar, that is where we also bring one of the top leaders or based on the evolving threats, and we will invite experts to come in to share about the latest about the evolving threats. And the third part is capability. I think cybersecurity for maritime in certain areas are still at the nascent stage, at the infancy stage. And there could be still more solutions to be developed. For example, the shipboards systems inside the ships. So in terms of capability developments, organizations can work with some of the Institute of Higher Learnings to conduct R&D on some of the, for example, shipboard systems, right? And that is form part of the capability for cyber resilience for your company and for the industry. And also there's training programs that can put in place for all the seafarers, for example, for the maritime seafarers. So on this, probably I'm just showing here that in MPA, we has been putting up infographics on a monthly basis. It's a joint initiative between MPA and Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore to share some of the end user cybersecurity, cyber hygiene practices to strengthen their awareness. And these are ranges from simple topic like what is strong password, how to detect, or rather how to mitigate ransomware, for example, and understand what is business email compromise. So these are the end user education, and I think this form a key strategy for your robust cybersecurity programs. Okay, with that, I think I've reached the end of my slides. I just want to emphasize that the vulnerability or the attack surface will increase with digitalizations, and there's no silver bullet to cybersecurity. We need a pragmatic approach, a balanced approach to all the four areas that we just highlighted. And it's critical that cybersecurity risk is always communicated and has the top level support from the organizations. And there's a need to always practice, respond, and recover that incident response plan. And also collaborations with your partners. Info sharing can give heads up to actionable info that can help you to prevent an attack. Yeah, with that, I would like to conclude my presentations, and probably I can open up for some query or questions.